The year was 2347, and humanity had finally joined the Galactic Concord. This was a huge alliance of 17 alien species that had ruled the known universe for over 12,000 years. Ambassador Linda Morrison stood aboard Verona Station, which was Earth's first permanent outpost beyond their solar system. She was waiting to meet a group of aliens from the Cathari Dominion. The Cathari were very old beings. Their civilization was older than most others by thousands of years. They stood nearly 8 feet tall and had shiny scales covering their bodies. They had 4 powerful arms and had conquered many species before the Concord forced them to stop fighting. Their leader, High Sovereign Velthrin, had asked for this meeting after his people had watched videos from Earth's military database. "Your species confuses us," Velthrin said through the translation machine. His eyes became narrow as he looked at Linda. "We have watched your combat videos. Your standard soldiers, the ones you call ordinary, they do things we only expect from our best warriors." Linda kept her face calm. She had been told this might happen. The other species had been watching humanity's small fights with the Raxian pirates, who attacked ships in the outer territories. What humans thought were normal military actions had caused a lot of worry among the aliens. "I am not sure what you mean, High Sovereign," she said. Velthrin leaned forward. His huge body blocked the light from the ceiling. "One of your soldiers, during the fight at Outpost 7, was hurt very badly. The wounds would have killed any of my warriors 3 times. But he kept fighting for 6 more hours. He killed 47 enemies. Then he carried 2 of his wounded friends 12 kilometers to safety. Your records say he had no special changes to his body." "Sergeant Danny Ruiz," Linda said with a small smile. "He got a medal for that. I think he is now teaching new soldiers on Mars." "Teaching new soldiers," Velthrin repeated slowly. "This warrior who did what our best soldiers could not, he is now only good enough to train your beginners." Linda nodded. "He asked to do it. He said he wanted to help others." The Cathari looked at each other. Linda could see something change in the room. It felt like fear. Far away from the station, Commander Kevin Price was flying his ship through space on a normal patrol. His ship was called the Wanderer, and it was a small warship with 42 men and women. Most of them had worked together for 3 years. "Commander, we are getting a call for help," said Lieutenant Maria Santos from her workstation. "It is coming from a Valith trading ship. They say someone is attacking them." Kevin looked at the screen in front of him. The Valith were a peaceful species. They were small and weak compared to most aliens. Everyone knew them for their beautiful art, but they had no military at all. They depended completely on the Concord to protect them. "How far away are they?" 20 minutes. If we go as fast as we can, sir, do it. Everyone get ready for battle." The Wanderer flew through space as fast as possible. When they arrived, Kevin felt his jaw get tight. The Velith ship was surrounded by 5 strange ships. These ships had weird growths on them that glowed with ugly light. I cannot find these ships in any computer file," Maria said. Her voice sounded worried. "Whatever they are, the Concord does not know about them. Send them a message." The answer came in a strange language, but the meaning was clear. "Leave or die." Kevin looked at his crew. These were normal men and women. Some fixed things, some flew the ship, some ran the machines. None of them had signed up for this kind of fight. But standing behind Maria was Petty Officer Tony Valdez, who had grown up poor in New Angeles and joined the Navy to make a better life. At the weapons station sat Chief Gunner Samantha Bell, who used to compete in shooting contests and could hit tiny targets from very far away. In the engine room, Chief Greg Palmer was already getting his teams ready for damage. He had 20 years of experience keeping ships working in bad situations. They were not special forces. They had no special body changes. They were just humans. "Everyone listen," Kevin said into the speaker system. "There are civilians in danger. I will not order anyone to fight, but I am going in. If you want to come with me, I would be proud to serve with you." Not one person left their post. The fight lasted 17 minutes. The enemy ships, which would later be found to belong to the Scourge, a species everyone thought was dead for 1,000 years, had more ships and bigger guns than the Wanderer. Every calculation said the human ship should have been destroyed in the first minute. It was not. Tony Valdez, working the controls, did something that should have been impossible. He flew the Wanderer between two enemy ships so close they almost touched. This let Samantha fire at both targets at the same time. When the main weapons got damaged, she switched to aiming by hand, something no other species in the Concorde even tried, and kept hitting the enemy with amazing accuracy. In the engine room, a pipe broke and filled one area with super hot gas. Without stopping to think, crewman Lucas Webb ran into that area and fixed the break with his bare hands. He got burns on 40% of his body. He would not take medicine for the pain until the fight was over. When enemy soldiers tried to break into the ship, they met a security team led by Sergeant Carla Hughes. The Scourge soldiers were bigger, faster, and had better weapons than the humans. But Carla's team had trained in fighting without gravity, fighting in small spaces, and fighting in cities. They had pushed their bodies harder than any of them thought possible. The enemy soldiers never got past the second hallway by the time help from the Concorde arrived. 3 of the 5 enemy ships had been destroyed. 1 was floating dead in space. The last one was trying to run away. The Velith trading ship was damaged, but still working. All 37 of its crew members were saved. The Wanderer had lost 11 crew members. Every person still alive was wounded. Admiral Velthrin got the report about the battle and could not believe it. He had spent hundreds of years studying war. He had commanded fleets that took over entire star systems. He had personally killed thousands of enemies in combat, but here was a human ship, just a simple patrol boat, that had beaten an enemy force that should have needed a whole battle group to fight. "Explain this to me," he demanded from his military experts. "How did they survive? What weapons did they use? What changes did they have?" "None," High Sovereign replied his chief expert. "Normal human weapons. Normal human crew. No changes to their genes, no machine parts in their bodies, no fighting drugs. By every measure we use, these were ordinary humans." "That is impossible. The proof does not lie, High Sovereign. We have watched the recordings many times. The human commander made choices that our own prediction computers did not expect. Their gunner showed accuracy better than our best automatic targeting systems. Their repair teams fixed things in conditions that would have killed any of our own engineers." Velthrin sat quiet for a long time. Then he asked the question that had been bothering him since his meeting with Ambassador Morrison. If these are their ordinary soldiers, what are their special forces? No one had an answer. News about the Battle of Velith Crossing spread through the Concorde like fire through dry grass. Species that had barely noticed humanity before suddenly started asking for military training together. Diplomatic meetings, and most interesting of all, protection deals. The Cathari were not the only ones who had seen what humans could do. The Syndicate of Organized Species, a loose group of smaller civilizations that had always been unhappy under Concorde rule, started sending friendly messages. The Ancient Preservers, being so old they had watched stars being born and dying, broke their silence of 10,000 years to ask for a meeting with human leaders and in the dark spaces between stars. Something else was watching. Major Christine Miller had been in the United Earth's military for 15 years. She had fought in the Mars Uprising, the Belt Wars, and the bloody cleanup of the outer colonies. By any standard, she was a tough combat soldier who had won many medals for bravery under fire. She was also, according to official records, completely normal. "You understand why we called you here?" said General Marcus Webb. His office on Earth's Space Command Station looked down at the blue ball of humanity's home planet. "Is Scourge, sir, partly. Our intelligence people think the battle at Velith Crossing was not random. The Scourge have been watching us, testing what we can do. And they are not alone." Christine took this in without showing any feeling on her face. "How many species are we talking about?" "At least 3 that we know of. Maybe more. The Concorde has enemies. Old enemies that they thought they had destroyed long ago. And these enemies have apparently decided that humanity is a threat worth looking at more closely because of what happened at Velith Crossing, because of what our ordinary soldiers did at Velith Crossing. Imagine what they think about our actual special operations units. Christine let herself show a thin smile. Sir, with respect, most of our special operations training comes from techniques we made to fight each other. We have been getting ready for real war for hundreds of years. The Concord species have not faced a real challenge in 12,000 years. That is exactly what makes us dangerous, and that is exactly why I am starting Operation Lighthouse. Operation Lighthouse was simple to explain, but scary to actually do. Its purpose was to show, clearly and without any doubt, what humanity was really able to do. This was not to threaten the Concord, but to scare away the enemies hiding in the shadows. The operation would happen on Varana Station, where every Concord species could watch. It would be a joint training exercise between human special operations forces and the best military units of the three most powerful Concord members. These were the Cathari Genetic Warriors, the Morvith Hive Guard, and the Sanctuary Protectors of the Ancient Preservers. Christine was chosen to lead the human team. She had 12 operators from different parts of Earth's military: Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, Air Force Pararescue, Marine Raiders. Each of them had survived selection tests that sent 90% of people home. Each of them had finished training that would have killed most humans. Each of them had seen combat in places so dangerous that just staying alive was considered winning. And yet, by the standards humanity used for its own military, they were just very good soldiers. Elite, yes, but not superhuman. The Concord did not understand this difference. The first day of the exercise had a standard obstacle course. Standard by human military rules meant it had live bullets being fired, dangerous environmental conditions, and physical challenges made to test the very limits of what a human body could do. The Cathari Genetic Warriors went first. These beings had been bred for combat over thousands of generations. Their genes had been made perfect for strength, speed, and aggression. Their leader, a warrior named Calvin, finished the course in what his people thought was excellent time. Then, Christine's team took their turn. That the human operators moved through the course with smooth skill that made the watching Concord observers go silent. Where the Catharia had used raw power, the humans used technique. Where the genetically improved warriors had pushed through obstacles, the humans found ways around them, or through them with the least effort possible. Staff Sergeant Eddie Romero was a small man by human standards at 5'6". He came to a wall that had forced Calvin to climb over. Eddie looked at it for 3 seconds, found a weak point in the structure, and simply kicked through it. The sound of breaking metal echoed across the training area. Petty Officer Diana Cole was the team's combat medic. She reached the section where live bullets were being fired and started moving through the danger zone at a speed that the Concord safety watchers first thought was suicide. She was not hit once. Her return fire was so accurate that the automatic targeting systems thought she was a computer error. By the time Sergeant Major Raymond Cruz finished the course, carrying 2 of his teammates who had gotten small injuries on his back, the watching Concord forces had stopped taking notes. They were just staring. Christine watched their reactions with professional calm. These were just training exercises, she knew. The real test would come later, and she had a feeling the test was coming very soon that night. Christine sat in the observation room of Varana Station, looking out at the stars. High Sovereign Veltrin found her there. You do not celebrate with your team, he said, his deep voice filling the small room. There's nothing to celebrate yet. This was just a training day. Training day that has made my warriors question everything they believed about themselves. Velthrin moved to stand beside her at the window. Calvin came to me after the exercise. He asked how beings with no genetic improvements, no special breeding, no combat modifications, could move like that, fight like that, think like that. What did you tell him? I told him I did not know. Because I do not. The huge alien turned to face her. Your species has only been in space for 300 years. You have no great military tradition by galactic standards. Your bodies are fragile compared to ours. And yet your soldiers perform at levels that our best cannot match. Christine thought about her answer for a moment. Do you know what basic training is like for a human soldier? I have seen the records. Then you know we break them down before we build them up. We push them past what they think they can do. We show them that the limits they believed in were lies. Every human soldier, even the most basic recruit, has been to a place inside themselves where they wanted to quit more than anything else in the world. And they kept going anyway. This is true of all military training throughout the galaxy, no, Christine said quietly. It is not. Your warriors are bred for combat. They do not need to overcome anything because their genes have already given them everything they need. They have never had to find strength they did not know they had, because they have always been strong. She turned to look at him directly. Humans are weak, high sovereign. We get sick easily. We die from things that other species would not even notice. A fall that a Cathari would walk away from would kill us. We know this. We have always known this. And we decided it did not matter. How can weakness not matter? Because weakness is where strength is born. Every human who has ever accomplished anything great has done it by refusing to accept their limitations. We do not succeed because we are strong. We succeed because we will not stop. Velthorn was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, softer. The preservers have a saying. They say that the most dangerous creature is not the one with the sharpest claws or the strongest armor. It is the one that does not know it should be afraid. Humans know fear very well, Christine replied. We just do not let it make our choices for us. Outside the window, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere out there, enemies were gathering, making plans, preparing to test humanity's strength in ways that no one could yet imagine. Christine was ready. Her team was ready. And soon, the entire galaxy would learn what human special forces could really do. The attack came 3 weeks into the joint training exercise. Most of the station's 2,000 residents were sleeping. The Concord had not seen a direct attack on a major installation in living memory. They had forgotten what it felt like to be hunted. Christine was in her room, reading reports on her tablet when the alarm started screaming. By the time she had grabbed her weapons and reached the main hallway, she could already hear gunfire from the lower levels. The sound was wrong somehow. Too many shots. Too much panic? Report, she said into her communication device. Boarders, ma'am, came Eddie's voice. He sounded tense, but controlled. Unknown species. They came through the cargo areas. At least 30 of them. Station security is down. How many dead? Heavy losses. The Morvith are fighting, but they are being pushed back. These things are fast, ma'am. Really fast. Christine processed this information in less than a second. Verana Station had over 2,000 diplomatic staff and support workers, and most of them could not fight. The station's security force was mostly for show. The Concord had not needed real guards in 12,000 years. All Lighthouse team members meet at my position. We are going hunting. The creatures were called the Veshkai, and everyone had thought they were extinct for even longer than the Scourge. But the Veshkai were different from the Scourge. The Scourge were just dangerous. The Veshkai were something much worse. They were hunters. Not just physically, but mentally. They had evolved to hunt intelligent species, to feed on fear and pain, to break their prey's mind before eating their body. Their very presence created a low wave of psychic energy that made most species freeze in terror. It was like being a rabbit in front of a wolf, but 1,000 times stronger. Most species. Sergeant First Class Nathan Brooks felt the psychic wave hit him like a bucket of ice water poured over his head. The deepest part of his brain screamed at him to run, to hide, to curl up, and die quietly. It was a fear that went deeper than thinking, deeper than reason. He felt the fear. He accepted it. Then he pushed through it. Contact ahead, he said calmly, raising his weapon. 3 targets, 20 meters. The Veshkai were nightmares made real. They had long bodies covered in hard shell-like armor. They had many arms that ended in edges sharper than any blade. Their heads seemed to be nothing but teeth and hunger. They moved with a smooth, liquid speed that should have been impossible for things their size. Nathan fired 3 times. 3 bodies hit the floor. Chout. Diana called from behind him. More coming from the air vents. The next 30 minutes were pure violence. Christine's team moved through Verana Station like a force of nature, killing Veshkai with cold efficiency. They rescued trapped diplomatic staff, worked with what was left of station security, and step by step pushed the invaders back toward the cargo areas. The Veshkai psychic attacks did nothing. The humans had trained to work under conditions of extreme mental stress. They had been kept awake for days, had their senses overloaded, had been exposed to chemicals that made thinking almost impossible. A little evolutionary fear was nothing they could not handle. But the real turning point came when Christine's team found a group of HFY warriors who had been completely frozen by the Veshkai. The genetically enhanced soldiers. Beings designed from birth for combat were huddled against a wall. Their mighty bodies had been reduced to shaking piles of fear. Calvin, the warrior who had led them through the training exercises, was among them. His forearms were wrapped around himself, and his eyes were blank with terror. Christine did not stop. Diana, stay with them. Everyone else with me. There are civilians in the next section, Commander, Calvin managed to say. His voice was broken and weak. How are you not affected? Christine stopped just long enough to answer. We are affected, Calvin. We are terrified. We just do not let it stop us. Then she was gone, running toward the sound of screaming. The fight for Verona Station lasted 6 hours. When it was over, every single Veshkai that had boarded the station was dead. Of the 37 creatures that had broken in, humans had personally killed 29. Christine's team had 4 wounded members, none of them badly hurt. The rest of the station had lost over 200 people. Most of them, in the first attack before the humans had gotten organized in the medical area afterward. Christine sat on a bed while a doctor fixed a deep cut on her arm. The wound went almost to the bone, but she had not noticed it during the fight. High Sovereign Velthrin appeared in the doorway and stood there for a long time, just watching her. You saved my warriors, he finally said. They were helpless, and you protected them. They are allies, Christine replied. That is what we do. No. Velthrin walked into the room. His movements were slow, almost careful, in a way she had never seen from his species. That is not what anyone does. When the weak fall, they are left behind. This is how the universe works. The strong survive because they do not waste time on the failures of others. Then maybe it is time someone changed the rules. The Cathari High Sovereign was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice held something Christine had never heard from his species before. Respect. Real respect. We have studied your kind since you first joined the Concord. We looked at your biology, your psychology, your history. We found nothing that should make you special. You are not stronger than us, not faster, not longer lived. Your technology is not as good as ours. Your population is tiny compared to the major powers. And yet, when the darkness came, you were the ones who stood. Not because you were designed for it. Not because you were changed or modified or bred. But because you chose to stand. Velthrin lowered his head. In Cathari culture, this was a sign of deep respect. Understand now why the shadows fear your ordinary soldiers. It is because ordinary humans are not ordinary at all. You are something the universe has never seen before. A species that has learned to overcome its own limits through pure force of will. He met her eyes. What, then, could your special forces do? Christine smiled, and there was something old in that smile. Something that stretched back through thousands of years of human fighting. Human dying and human winning. Let us hope, she said, that you never have to find out. But she knew, deep in her gut, that they would find out. The Veshkai attack had not been random. Someone had sent them. Someone was testing humanity, probing their defenses, looking for weaknesses. The Shadow War had begun. The Shadow War lasted 3 years. It was not like the wars humans had fought before. There were no front lines, no clear enemies, no declarations of war. Instead, there were attacks in the darkness. Battles in forgotten corners of the galaxy, and a slow, bloody struggle against enemies that had been hiding for thousands of years. The Scourge launched their main attack against the Concord's core system 6 months after the Verona Station incident. Intelligence reports suggested they had been building their forces in secret for centuries. waiting for the perfect moment to strike. They had ships, weapons, and soldiers that the Concorde had never seen before. They expected an easy victory. What they got was Admiral Kevin Price. Kevin had been promoted after his actions at the Battle of Velith Crossing. Now he commanded a mixed fleet of human and Concorde vessels, tasked with defending the crucial Nexus Prime system. The Scourge sent a force 3 times larger than his. By every calculation, Kevin should have retreated and called for backup. He attacked instead. Using tactics taken from Earth's naval history, Kevin split the enemy fleet apart. He used small, fast ships to draw groups of enemy vessels away from the main force. Then his heavy ships hit those isolated groups hard. It was an old trick, one that human admirals had been using for centuries. The Scourge had never seen anything like it. The Battle of Nexus Prime lasted 12 hours. When it was over, the Scourge had lost 60% of their ships in a single fight. Kevin's fleet had taken heavy damage, but not a single human ship had been destroyed. The enemy survivors fled back into the darkness. Across the Concorde, the news spread. Humans had done it again. Ordinary humans, fighting with ordinary tactics, had beaten an enemy that should have crushed them. But the Scourge were not the only threat. The Veshkai were still out there, and they had not forgotten their failure at Verona Station. They launched a new attack, this time against the Kethari homeworld itself. Christine Miller and her team were sent to help with the defense. When they arrived, they found something unexpected. The Cathari warriors who had frozen in fear at Verona Station had been training. Calvin had taken what Christine told him about pushing through fear and had started teaching it to his people. "We cannot match you," Calvin told Christine when she landed. "Your ability to ignore fear is something we were not built for. But we have learned to fight through it, at least for short times. Perhaps that will be enough." "It will be more than enough," Christine replied. "Let us show these creatures what happens when they attack our allies." The Battle of Keth Prime was different from the Veshkai's previous attacks. This time, the defenders were ready. Human special operators worked alongside Cathari warriors, combining human tactics with Cathari strength. When the Veshkai tried their psychic fear broadcasts, they found that their prey was no longer freezing. Nathan Brooks led a team through the underground tunnels where the Veshkai were trying to set up a base. The creatures attacked from every direction, psychic waves washing over the combined human and Cathari force like cold water. "Keep moving!" Nathan shouted. "Remember your training. The fear is just a feeling. It cannot hurt you." Beside him, a Kethari warrior named Telvin was struggling. The huge alien's scales were pale with terror and his 4 hands were shaking. But he kept his weapon up. He kept moving forward. "How do you do this?" Telvin gasped. "How do you keep fighting when every part of you wants to run?" "One step at a time," Nathan replied. "You do not have to be brave. You just have to take the next step." They took the next step together. And the next. And the next. By the time they reached the Veshkai Command Center, Telvin was fighting with a fury that surprised even himself. The fear was still there, but he had learned something that his species had never known. Fear could be a friend. It could sharpen your senses, speed your reactions, make you fight harder than you ever thought possible. The Veshkai were driven off Keth Prime with massive losses. More importantly, the Cathari had learned a new way to fight. The alliance between humans and the genetic warriors grew stronger with each battle. But the greatest challenge was yet to come. Intelligence reports started coming in about a third enemy, one that made even the Scourge and the Veshkai seem small. The Concorde called them the First Darkness, because they were so old that no one remembered their real name. They had been the first great enemy the Concorde ever faced, 12,000 years ago. Everyone thought they had been destroyed. They had not been destroyed. They had been waiting. The First Darkness began, their assault slowly. They did not attack military targets. Instead, they went after civilian populations, spreading terror and chaos throughout the Concorde. The entire colonies disappeared overnight. Ships vanished without a trace. Rumors spread that the First Darkness could not be killed. They were ghosts or demons or something worse. General Marcus Webb called Christine back to Earth for a special briefing. The war room was filled with the highest military leaders from both Earth and the Concorde. Velthrin was there, along with representatives from the Morvith Hive and the Ancient Preservers. "We are losing," Marcus said bluntly. "Not the battles. we win most of those. But the first darkness is not trying to win battles. They are trying to break our spirit. They are trying to make us so afraid that we give up. Then we need to show them that we will not give up, Christine said. That is exactly what we are going to do. We have found their main base. It is hidden in a dead star system at the edge of known space. We are going to attack it.
The room went silent.
Velthrin was the first to speak. An attack on the first darkness stronghold would require a massive force. We would be sending our best warriors into the heart of enemy territory against an enemy we barely understand. The losses would be catastrophic. Maybe, Marcus replied. But if we do not stop them now, they will pick us apart piece by piece. We have to take the fight to them. I will lead the ground assault, Christine said. My team will be first in. The Cathari will join you, Velthrin said. Our warriors have learned much from fighting alongside humans. It is time we repaid that debt. One by one, the other species volunteered their forces. The Morvith Hive Guard, the Sanctuary Protectors. Even species that had never fought before offered to help. For the first time in the Shadow War, the entire Concord was united. Christine looked around the room at all the different beings. From so many different worlds, speaking so man. Why different languages? 3 years ago, most of them would not have considered humanity worth noticing. Now, they were preparing to fight and die alongside human soldiers. One more thing, Marcus said. This mission has been given a name. We are calling it Operation Dawn, because when we are done, the darkness will be over. Christine nodded. It was a good name, and she intended to make sure they lived up to it. The fleet gathered at Nexus Prime. It's the largest military force the Concord had ever put together. Over 300 ships from 17 different species hung in space like a wall of metal and fire. At the center of the formation was the human flagship. Carrying Admiral Kevin Price and the command staff for the entire operation, Christine stood in the launch bay with her team. Checking their equipment one final time, Eddie was making small adjustments to his rifle. Diana was going over her medical supplies. Nathan was helping Raymond secure his armor. They had fought together for 3 years now through battles that should have killed them a dozen times over. Any last words? Eddie asked with a small grin. This seems like the time for speeches. Just one, Christine replied. Do not die. That is an order. Yes, ma'am.
Ow!
The fleet jumped to the dead star system together. What they found waiting for them was worse than any of the intelligence reports had suggested. The First Darkness had been building their forces for 12,000 years. Their ships numbered in the hundreds, strange vessels that seemed to absorb light itself. Their soldiers were nightmares given form, creatures of shadow and hate that made even the Veshkai seem friendly. Admiral Kevin Price studied the enemy formation and felt the same cold fear that every being in the fleet was feeling. The First Darkness radiated terror, the same way stars radiated heat. It was a constant pressure against the mind, telling everyone who felt it that they should run, that they could not win. That resistance was pointless. Kevin had felt fear before, at Velith Crossing, when he took on 5 ships with one. In dozens of battles since then, he had learned something important in all those fights. Fear was information. It told you that something was dangerous. What you did with that information was your choice. It's all ships. This is Admiral Price. The enemy wants us to be afraid. Let them think it is working. Then show them what humans do when they are afraid. We fight. All ships engage. The Battle of the Dead Star was the largest fight in galactic history. Ships from both sides tore into each other with weapons that could crack planets. Fighters swirled between the larger vessels like angry insects. The darkness of space was lit up with explosions bright enough to be seen from light years away. Christine's dropship punched through the enemy lines and headed for the main installation, a massive structure built into an asteroid the size of a small moon. The First Darkness had made it their home for thousands of years, and its defenses were beyond anything the assault teams had ever faced. The dropship took heavy fire on approach. Christine felt the craft shake as weapons struck the hull. The pilot, a young woman named Lieutenant Rosa Martinez, kept them on course through skill and pure determination. 30 seconds to landing, Rosa called out. It is going to be rough. Rough is fine, Christine replied. Dead is not. Get us down in one piece. The dropship crashed into the asteroid's surface hard enough to throw everyone against their straps. The rear door blew open, and Christine was first out, rifle already firing at the first. Darkness soldiers rushing toward them. These enemies were different from anything they had fought before. They seemed to be made of shadows given solid form, with eyes that burned with ancient hate. They moved faster than should have been possible. They did not die easily, but they did die. Eddie moved up beside Christine, his rifle speaking in short, controlled bursts. Diana was right behind them, ready to treat any wounded. Nathan took the left side of the formation while Raymond anchored the right. Behind them came the Cathari warriors led by Calvin and Telvin, their roars mixing with the sound of gunfire. Push forward, Christine ordered. We need to reach the central chamber. The fight through the installation was brutal. Every corridor was defended. Every room held more enemies. The first darkness threw everything they had at the assault force. The assault force kept coming. In the central chamber, they found the heart of the first darkness. It was not a creature or a machine. It was something in between, a massive construct of organic tissue and ancient technology that pulsed with dark energy. This was what had been controlling the first darkness for 12,000 years. This was what had been spreading terror across the galaxy, and it was afraid Christine could feel it. The constant pressure of fear that had been pushing against her mind was changing. It was no longer trying to make her afraid. It was afraid itself. It had never faced anything like humans before. It had never encountered beings who used fear as fuel instead of letting it stop them. All teams focus fire on the central construct. Everything you have. The combined force unloaded on the heart of the first darkness. Human weapons, Cathari heavy cannons, Morvith energy projectors, and a dozen other systems from a dozen other species all firing at once. The construct screamed, a sound that existed partly in normal space and partly in the mind, and began to die. As it died, the first darkness soldiers began to fall. They had been connected to the central construct, drawing their power from it. Without it, they were nothing but shadows. And shadows cannot fight against beings who carry their own light. Outside, in space, the first darkness fleet was falling apart. Admiral Kevin Price watched as enemy ships went dead, their crews collapsing as the link to their master was severed. The Concord forces moved in to finish them off, but there was not much left to fight. The Battle of the Dead Star was over. The first darkness was broken. 3 months later, Ambassador Linda Morrison stood before the Galactic Concord Assembly. The same chamber where she had first introduced humanity to the wider universe was now filled with beings who looked at her with something very different. From the cautious curiosity of that first meeting 3 years ago, she began, "We joined your Concord as newcomers. You were right to be careful. We were unknown, a species with a violent history and unclear intentions." She paused, looking at the assembled representatives. "Today, we stand together as something more than allies. The threats that came from the darkness have been defeated. Not by humanity alone, but by all of us fighting together. The walls between our peoples have started to fall. We have fought together, bled together, lost friends together, and in doing that, we have become stronger than any of us were alone." High Sovereign Velthrin rose from his seat. He looked different now than he had 3 years ago. Less proud somehow, but also more confident. The experience of fighting alongside humans had changed him as it had changed his entire species. "The humans have a saying," Velthrin announced to the chamber. "The only easy day was yesterday." When I first heard this, I thought it was a complaint. Now I understand it as a promise. They do not want easy victories. They do not expect simple answers. They accept struggle because they believe it makes them stronger. He turned to face Linda. "We asked them once what their special forces could do. Today, I have an answer. They can do anything. Because their special forces are simply humans who have pushed themselves beyond what even other humans thought possible. And if ordinary humans can break the rules of probability, physics, and evolution, then their best are something the universe cannot measure. The chamber erupted in discussion, arguments, questions, but Linda noticed something beneath all the noise. Hope. For 12,000 years, the Concord had kept peace by being too strong to attack. No one believed the universe could actually get better. They just hoped it would not get worse. Humanity had changed that. Not through better technology or more soldiers, but through something much simpler. The refusal to accept limits. On Varana Station, now rebuilt and bigger than before, Christine Miller sat with her team in a quiet corner. Eddie was telling a story about a training exercise that had gone wrong, using big hand movements to make it funnier. Diana was rolling her eyes. Nathan was trying not to laugh and failing. Raymond was pretending to be too mature for such silliness, while obviously waiting for the funny part. They were all scarred. The war had taken pieces of them that would never come back. But they were alive, and they were together, and the universe was a little safer because they had chosen to stand when others fell. You know what is funny? Eddie said as he finished his story. The Kethari still think we are some kind of unstoppable super soldiers. I tried to explain that I failed out of college twice before I joined the military. Maybe that is the point, Diana offered. We are not special because we are perfect. We are special because we are stubborn. Christine smiled at that. It was as good an explanation as any. Across the galaxy, in council chambers and military schools and quiet homes, beings of every species were learning a new lesson. Courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. Strength was not measured in genetic perfection, but in the choice to keep fighting. The most dangerous creature in the universe was not the one born for war, but the one who refused to give up. Humans called their best warriors special forces. Galaxy had learned to fear what humans called ordinary.